لا إله إلا الله 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 لا إله إلا الله جود علينا.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. After praising Allah Almighty and sending salutations, peace and blessings upon the best of creation, the jewel and crown of creation, the beloved of Allah Almighty, the coolness to our eyes, the purpose of our lives, the reviver of our hearts, the inspirer to our minds, the awakener of our souls, the most honored one, the most praised one, the most generous one, the most kind one. Undoubtedly, he is the most beautiful one. None other than Sayyiduna Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa barak wa sallam. Over nearly 40 days of relentless bombing, shelling of the Palestinian people situated in Gaza, around more than 10,000 people have been killed, murdered, 70% of whom are women and children. The Gazan Interior Ministry has said that 59 masjids have been bombed in the Gazan area. And bombing of masjids, schools, hospitals constitutes war crimes. And that is exactly what the Zionist entity are carrying out at this moment in time, war crimes. Relentless amount of bombing on the Palestinian people, innocent people. It is deemed as collateral damage because the value of life is so little. It's unfortunate that Palestinian lives do not hold the same value and worth as Ukrainian lives, as Jewish lives, as white lives. They are deemed inferior in many ways. And that is shown by what is happening at this moment in time in Palestine. The reasons for why it's happening have been clearly mentioned in mainstream media and on social media, etc. Funny though that very reason that is used to bomb the people of Gaza is certainly not the reason for the amount of murders and killings that have taken place in the West Bank. That reason doesn't exist in the West Bank. So this is why it's very important that we understand what is happening, what is taking place, and we continue to raise awareness with regards to this. This is my 5th Jumu'ah where I'm talking about Palestine. And I will continue to talk about Palestine and remind our people about the importance of Al-Ardul Muqaddasa, the Holy Land. You see, when it started on the 8th of October, how everyone was so active with regards to this. And as days and weeks now pass by, it is slowly going to the back of our minds. It is no longer a priority on our activism list. New news comes out and that is the attention, that is the objective. Forgetting that what's happening in Palestine still is happening. It hasn't stopped. There is no ceasefire. There is no end to the war. And I use the word war as it's commonly used, but reality is it's a genocide where nearly 10,000, more than 10,000 people have been brutally killed. And the exact number and the exact figure will only increase. Why? Because there's so much rubble, debris, buildings that have fallen, bombed, and how many lives of civilians will be underneath those buildings. The exact number we'll only hear after. We will only know after. And the reason, the underlying reason, I feel, it may be a theory, is annexation of this land to the state of Israel. Ethnic cleansing and illegal occupation of the land of Gaza. The north of Gaza, they want to annex with the rest of Israel. That's what they want to do. And in 1999, if you was to go and Google search this and go research on this subject and topic, you have to remember Western forces have always had a keen interest in foreign soil, especially in the Middle East and the subcontinent, because of the natural resources Allah has placed in those parts of the world. During the British Empire, they went towards India, they colonized India, it was known as British India. They went to South Africa and other parts of Africa, French colonialism, Belgian colonialism. These are foreign colonial powers, countries that went into other countries to take them over, to colonize them, to rule over them. And what was the reason? You don't find the crown jewels being so precious. You won't find them in Dover or in Scarborough. You'll only find them in Africa. Jewels of worth and value. And because of the resources, the natural resources, diamonds, rubies, and all of what is found and comes from the earth in that part of the world, the African continent, you found these colonial powers in the last 100, 200, 300 years going towards those lands to take what is not theirs, that does not belong to them. There was an illegal war that was waged against the people of Iraq in Iraq. They forged documents to say there were weapons of mass destruction. It was voted in Parliament, it was voted in the US Senate that we must go and bomb Iraq and attack Iraq, when the reality is that they wanted Iraq's oil. They went for Libya because they felt Muammar Gaddafi and others, they were tyrants and dictators. Really, in reality, what were they after? They were after the oil of Libya. They went to Afghanistan and fought against the Taliban in Afghanistan for what? On the apparent, it's one story, but the reality behind the scenes, the amount of money wars make them, it's another story. The story is what? It's quite simple, it's quite clear, that they're after the resources of that. Gaza is no different to this. Gaza is no exception to this. In 1999, over 1 trillion amount of gas reserves were found in the Mediterranean Sea next to Gaza. In 1999. And British gas, as always the British are involved, they struck a deal with the people of Gaza, and then the Israelis wanted part of this. Remember, Gaza is Palestinian territory. Gaza is under Palestinian authority. So anything that is happening to the people of Gaza is happening to the Palestinians directly. This is why it's not a war. When is it a war? It is a war when your army attacks the army of Gaza. Where is the army of Gaza? They have no army. Where is the airport in Gaza? Where are the freedoms of the people of Gaza? There are over 700 checkpoints in the land of Palestine. 700 checkpoints. For whom? To control whom? It's apartheid. That's what it is. It is apartheid. It is ethnic cleansing. It is what is happening now in Palestine, genocide. For it's not equal, it's not, level, it's not a level playing ground. It's not. It is pure injustice and oppression on the people. And one of the main reasons why is because of the gas reserves that they have found. In 1999, and then in 2006, and then 2007, and then the embargoes. The wall was built, and it was taken from them. The reality is, the Israelis violated and broke international law. International law was broken, and they've gone and directly dealt with whom? The British government with regards to the gas reserves. That's what's happened. So the Palestinians are on the table, they took the Palestinians out. They had a 10% share in this. They took them completely out of here, and they've took over everything. And what is America's interest in this, with everything happening in Russia and Ukraine, and the gas pipes, the pipelines? It is easier and better to continue to have maintain a relationship with the state of Israel, so that direct gas pipelines can go from there straight to America, straight to Europe. Hence why America and Britain continue to remain silent on the issue of Palestine and the people of Gaza. There was always foreign interest by the American and British governments in foreign interest in foreign land, hence why they went to those countries. That's the truth and reality. Afghanistan, Libya, oil, Iraq, oil, Syria. Why? What is the need? To destabilize. And as someone who practices Islam on the path, the truth deep is to control Islam, is to quell Islam, is to bottle Islam, to not let the spread of Islam occur. And the more we practice Islam, the more we continue to carry out the teachings of Islam, the more we continue on the way of Islam, we become true practicing Muslims, the more Islam will spread. Islam will spread with me and you. Islam will spread with how we behave, who we follow, how we follow. The way we behave is a representation of what? Islam. We are the representatives, we are the ambassadors of Islam living here in the West. So it's very important. So when wars or genocide, injustice, oppression like this takes place, then it's not befitting for a Muslim to go and break windows of Starbucks. It's not befitting of a Muslim to go and get mice and throw it into McDonald's. It is not befitting of the stature and rank of a Muslim to spew hatred against Jewish people. It is not befitting for the maqam and status of a Muslim that he spreads rumors and evil and falsehood. No, this is not the way of Islam. We should always and must always maintain our integrity as Muslims. We mustn't lose our integrity and dignity as Muslims when we live in the West. We are the ambassadors, like one of the great scholars of Al-Azhar in the early 19th century. He traveled to Europe, he lectured in Europe, and he came back to Egypt. He sat on his mimbar, on his kursi, and he was delivering a sermon, and he said, he summarized. He said, I found Islam in Europe, but no Muslims. Very limited number of Muslims, but I found Islam there. And I come to Egypt, I find Muslims and very little Islam. This is the reality. I come back to Egypt, I come to the Arab world, it is full of Muslims, but very little Islam. And in the West, I find there's a lot of Islam there, but very little Muslims. How do we as Muslims practice Islam? My name is Muslim, my birth is in a Muslim home, but what about me is Islamic? What about me is Islam? Is Islam practiced within my home? Islam practiced within our society, within our community? Is Islam at the forefront of our every decision? Is Islam at the forefront of every understanding? Khalas, we don't. We are far from this. This is why we must come back to the way of the Quran and the Sunnah, the way of Allah and His Rasul, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. We must hold on to the Quran and Sunnah. We must hold on to the teachings of Islam. And for as long as we hold on to the teachings of Islam, the way of Islam, the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we as a nation will prosper. We as an ummah will prosper. A scholar was once asked, why is the ummah in the state it finds itself in? Why is it we are large in number yet weak? What is the reason for the weakness of the ummah? He said they have preferred the love of 8 things over 3. Man said, what do you mean? He said, they have chosen 8 over 3. He said, what 8? He said, open the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قُلْ إِن كَانَ آبَاؤُكُمْ وَأَبْنَاؤُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَعَشِيرَتُكُمْ وأموال اقترفتموها وتجارة تخشون كسادها ومساكن ترضونها أحب إليكم من الله ورسوله وجهاد في سبيله. Say to them, O my beloved, you inform them, tell them, are your parents, your children, your siblings, your spouses, your relatives, your wealth, your businesses, your homes, are these 8 more beloved to you than Allah and His Rasul and jihad fi sabilillah? Do you love these 8 more than you love Allah, His Rasul and jihad fi sabilillah? If the answer is yes, that I love my parents and my children and my spouses and my siblings and my cousins, my wealth, my money, my business, I love them more than I love Allah and His Rasul, and jihad fi sabili, fatarabbasu hatta ya'ti Allahu bi amrih. He warned us, He told us clearly, then beware, be warned, fatarabbasu hatta, until ya'ti Allahu bi amrih, Allah brings His amr. Yani bi'adhabihi, until Allah brings His punishment. Be warned that if you choose the love of your parents, your children, your spouses, your relatives, your brethren, siblings, wealth, business, homes, you love them more than you love Allah and His Rasul and jihad fi sabilihi, then Allah's punishment will come on the people. He said, this is why the ummah is weak. They love the dunya more than they love the akhirah. They love the dunya more than they love the deen. It is this hubbud dunya, love of the dunya, love of everything that is within the dunya, that has weakened the ummah. And this is why we mustn't love the dunya. The Sufiya, Salihin, Ahlullah, righteous people, they don't love the dunya. They live in the dunya, but the dunya doesn't live in them. They live inside the dunya. They work, they eat, they sleep, they talk, they walk, they do everything. They do business, everything. They have good ties with their parents, with their children, with their spouses, with their relatives, with their brethren. They have this. But this love of this dunya does not overpower their love for the akhirah. The moment this nation loved the life of this world over death, then this is what weakens the ummah. We prefer to live longer than we prefer to die. We are not ready to encounter death. We're not ready to meet death. We are scared of death. We want to run from death. For as long as we love the dunya and all that which is within the dunya more than we love Allah and His Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam wa jihadin fi sabilihi, then the ummah will remain weak. It is the love of Allah and His Rasul that should overpower and overcome all other loves. Nothing should be equal to the love, hubbullahi wa rasulih. May Allah Almighty make us from the lovers, His lovers and the lovers of His Habib, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. May Allah Almighty unite the ummah of the Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وأقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم وآخر دعوايا عن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
الله 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 لا إله إلا الله جود علينا.